Another day, another concealer drop. I know, we literally just tested concealers from Prada and Chanel and those RMS color correctors, but Charlotte Tilbury also released the Airbrush Flawless Blur Concealer, and I was intrigued enough to give it a shot. Hi friends, my name is Salima, and in this video, I will share my honest opinions about the new Charlotte Tilbury and how it compares against the heavy hitters in my collection. I also have some new lip products from MAC, a JuicePop stain from Laneige, new Merit lipsticks, and a new Pretty Peony fragrance I sampled from Sephora. As always, there will be timestamps in the description for your convenience. Let's get started. I'm going to start with the new Charlotte Tilbury concealer. To be honest, I'm not typically one for these Charlotte Tilbury complexion products. For some reason, they never quite outshine the other foundations and concealers in my collection. However, this new concealer is marketed as a crease-proof, long-wearing blurring formula, so I was intrigued enough to give it a go. Let's talk aesthetics first. The packaging on this is pretty. It has a frosted tube with a rose gold cap. I think it looks good, but it is a little bulky, I'm not gonna lie. If you have a crowded makeup bag or limited storage, just keep in mind that this packaging requires a bit more space. However, the diamond shape applicator inside is excellent. It is designed to pick up a generous amount of product. Honestly, one dip provides enough coverage for both of my eyes. In terms of the formula, it has a creamy, slightly thicker consistency. Now, I usually prefer something very thin and fluid, but the good thing here is that once you spread it, it thins out beautifully. It doesn't add any unnecessary bulk or that heavy feeling under the eyes. Because it is a medium to full coverage creamy concealer, the trick is to start with a small amount and only add more if you truly need it. If you go in too heavy at the start, it can become difficult to blend and start to look cakey. On my dry skin, it looked beautiful. I tested it with both a brush and a sponge, and both worked perfectly. It sets to a soft matte finish, and I haven't noticed any creasing by the end of the day, though I do still set it with a tiny bit of powder to lock it in place. One thing I wanted to highlight for my sensitive skin friends is that this formula is actually fragrance free, which I know many of you will appreciate. There are 34 shades in this range, and I have found that they stay very true to what you see in the bottle without oxidizing. Overall, this concealer has worked very well for my dry skin without any extra steps. If you have combination or oily skin, or you prefer full coverage, you will love it. It is a powerhouse for covering dark circles and texture. However, if your skin is extremely dry or you lean towards a very sheer, no makeup aesthetic, you need to proceed with caution. This is a highly pigmented semi matte formula. My best advice in that case would be to prep your under eyes with a rich cream first. Start with a tiny amount and perhaps use a damp sponge. It helps shear out the coverage and gives you a bit more control to blend everything out seamlessly. Now, I wanted to compare the Charlotte Tilbury to some of the fuller coverage concealers in my collection that I tend to reach for more often. Let's start with the newest addition to my vanity, the Chanel Ultra Latent Concealer. Just like the Charlotte Tilbury, the Chanel provides a medium to full coverage and sets down to a semi matte finish. However, when wearing them side by side, I do feel the Chanel side is slightly more blurring and smoothing compared to the Charlotte Tilbury. The biggest difference is the texture. The Chanel has a thin, more fluid, lightweight consistency that practically melts into the skin. In contrast, the Charlotte Tilbury is significantly more creamy and emollient, which gives it that thicker, cushiony feel that I mentioned earlier. Ultimately, you get very similar results from both. It really comes down to your texture preference. Do you want that creamy, rich feel of the Charlotte Tilbury? Or are you willing to spend the extra dollars on the Chanel for that ultra fluid, weightless, smoothing effect? Personally, I have a preference for thin serum like consistency, so if I have to pick one, I'll go with the Chanel. Next, I wanted to compare the Charlotte Tilbury to the two fuller coverage concealers that are staple in my collection, and I use them interchangeably. These are the Sarah Creal Face Flex Concealer and the Tower 28 Swipe Serum Concealer. Both of these have that thin, serum like consistency that I personally adore, and it is noticeable shift from the denser, creamier feel of the Charlotte Tilbury formula. Despite being so lightweight, both still provide that medium to full coverage we are looking for. There's also a difference in the finish. While the Charlotte Tilbury gives you that soft focus, airbrushed look, both Sarah Creal and Tower 28 offer a much more natural, skin like finish. So, if you want a full coverage concealer with a natural finish, go with either Sarah Creal or Tower 28, depending on which brand is accessible to you and where you have your perfect shade match. One last concealer I wanted to compare is the Hourglass Vanish Airbrush Concealer. In all honesty, I don't reach for it at all. I wanted to bring it up today because it shares a similar profile to the Charlotte Tilbury. So it has creamy consistency, medium to full coverage, and a self setting semi matte dry down. However, the Hourglass simply does not wear well on my skin, regardless of the technique I use. It has a tendency to crease no matter how much I set it with powder. It also emphasizes dryness in a way that Charlotte Tilbury just doesn't. While they look similar in the bottle, the Charlotte Tilbury formula feels much more forgiving on my dry skin. If you are deciding between the two high pigment options, I personally prefer the Charlotte Tilbury in any situation. It gives me that airbrushed look without the emphasized texture. Alright, now that you have seen all the comparisons, what do you guys think? Are you intrigued by the new Charlotte Tilbury concealer? Have you already tried it? Or are you planning on picking it up? Let me know your thoughts in the comments. Okay, now let's talk about some lip products. But before we do that, if you are enjoying this video, please give it a big thumbs up. And if you enjoy luxury makeup, hair care, perfumes, and skincare, make sure to subscribe to my channel and turn on the notification bell so you never miss an upload from me. Moving on, I wanted to talk about two new lipstick additions to my collection. First up, the MAC Powder Kiss Hazy Matte Lipsticks. Now, these are a reformulated version of their original Powder Kiss formula, which, to be honest, I decluttered a long time ago. Those were just a bit too matte for my liking. They would emphasize my lip lines and just felt dry. But this new version feels completely different. Before we get into the details, I quickly wanted to mention that I really like this all black matte lipstick bullet. I think it looks so chic. Now, MAC describes this as a soft focus, weightless, long wear formula. And I 100% agree with that. It is indeed a thin formula that just glides on the lips so effortlessly. It feels exactly like a silicone based blurring primer, but for your lips. If you have ever used a high end smoothing or blurring primer, you will know that specific slip that I'm talking about. It just diffuses everything. It blurs out my lip lines and give me that perfect, soft focus, blotted look, but without that heavy, crusty dryness that we usually get from a classic matte lipstick bullet. They are calling this a hazy matte, so don't expect that super saturated, bold pigment. It has a moderate color payoff. But you guys, the thing that has me shocked is the longevity. I can go through a full day eating, drinking, the whole works, and it just stays put. I barely even have to touch it up. I'm honestly so happy with how it performs. This is what I wanted from the Violet FR matte sheer lipsticks, but those were just so drawing on me. These are a total win. And it's MAC. We know they're going to have a beautiful shade range. If you are like me and if you enjoy that blotted, blurred, just bitten finish, you're going to love these lipsticks. Next, I wanted to talk about the Merit Signature Lip Blushes. Interestingly, Merit actually discontinued their signature matte lipsticks and replace them with this new lip blush formula. I'm already very familiar with these because they have featured them in their holiday lip kits, which I purchase almost every year. In theory, these are quite similar to the MAC Hazy Mattes we just talked about, and I will compare them for you in just a second. But first, let's look at the packaging. The new lip blushes have this stunning golden component. Their signature hydrating lipstick, which is actually my favorite formula from the brand, has that dark brown acrylic cap. And the signature matte, the one they discontinued, has that black component. As for the texture, it has that same creamy, smoothing consistency that just glides over the lips and blurs everything out. It gives you that effortless, just bitten blotted look, but with a much thinner, more transparent finish than a typical matte. It is not super pigmented, but it's definitely not sheer either. It is that perfect happy medium. In terms of the texture, the comfort level on the lips, and even the color payoff, these are remarkably similar to the MAC Hazy Mattes. Honestly, if I close my eyes, I might have a hard time telling them apart at first. But the real difference, the make or break for some of you, is going to be the wear time. As I mentioned, the MAC is just on another level with how it grips the lips. It really doesn't go anywhere. But these Merit lip blushes give me about 5 to 6 hours of wear with moderate eating and drinking. They aren't just as transfer resistant as the MAC formula. With MAC, I'm good for the entire day, whereas with Merit, I am definitely reaching for a touch up in the afternoon. However, in my mind, 6 hours is still a very decent, respectable wear time. For a formula this thin and comfortable, I'm not mad at it at all. I really enjoy these. If you need a formula that you can rely on from morning until evening, the MAC is the way to go. But if you don't mind a quick touch up, the Merit is beautiful. It also just depends on the specific shade you are looking for and which brand has that perfect color for you. But honestly, in either case, you really cannot go wrong with either of these formulas. They are both stunning. Alright, now let's talk about the MAC Powder Kiss Lip and Cheek Mousse. This is yet another reformulation of their liquid lipstick, a formula I wasn't a fan of in the past. This new reformulated version is now a true multi use product that performs beautifully on both the lips and cheeks. It comes with this hourglass shaped wand, so you can easily dot a small amount onto the apples of your cheeks or use it to define your cupid's bow. The consistency here is what I would describe as an airy, whipped mousse. It is not that dense, heavy cream. It is thin, so it spreads easily and blends out into a blurred, soft focus matte finish. It is actually noticeably more pigmented and has a more pronounced blurring effect than the hazy matte lipsticks. I specifically wanted to test them on my cheeks as a blush to see how they compare to my Dior whipped liquid blushes. In my experience, MAC Powder Kiss Mousse creates the same effect on the cheeks as the Dior. They both are blurring and sets down to a matte finish on the skin. The wear time is similar on my skin, they don't fade much at the end of the day. The most noticeable difference is in the consistency. While they both are whipped mousse, the Dior is a comparatively thicker, more substantial mousse, whereas the MAC is thinner and has much more slip to it. That silkiness is exactly why it transitions so comfortably to the lips. I have been loving the shade over the taupe for a seamless monochromatic look. On the lips, they don't transfer as much, and the longevity is great. Overall, I think both of these new reformulated powder kiss formulas from MAC were a total hit for me. I'm really liking the direction MAC is taking with its products. I know they will soon be entering the Sephora in the US, and I'm planning on doing a video sharing all of my MAC favorites. So stay tuned for that. The last lip product I wanted to share with you guys today is the Laneige JuicePop Box Lip Tints. You guys, I am a total lip tint enthusiast. I have tried almost every formula from Asian market. Korean brands are known for their lip tints, and I actually have quite a collection. I've even done a dedicated video on those, which I will link for you. I also use some luxury tints from YSL, Dior, and Victoria Beckham. So there was no way I wasn't going to test the new Laneige JuicePop Box Lip Tint. Now, Laneige markets this as a water to oil formula, where you have 80% oil wrapped in 20% water to stain and hydrate your lips. You can feel that in the texture as you apply it to your lips. It goes on the lips like a thin fluid, but it transforms into a plush, nourishing oil. You can feel that cushiony texture when you press your lips together, and it sets into a high shine, juicy finish. But here is the catch: that glazed, glossy finish comes off almost immediately. It is such a bummer because it looks so beautiful initially, but it just doesn't stay. Once that top layer is gone, you are left with the stain. The stain itself is actually great. It is true to the color in the bottle and it isn't patchy at all. However, it simply doesn't have the longevity I have come to expect. Compared to my Korean lip tints, my Dior Eric tints, or my Victoria Beckham bitten tints, this comes off rather quickly if you're eating or drinking. It isn't patchy when it fades, which is a plus, but if you're eating or drinking, you will be left with almost no color. It's great if you don't mind a touch up, but it's definitely not a set it and forget it kind of formula. Now, I've seen quite a few people comparing the Laneige to the Rare Beauty Soft Pinch Tinted Lip Oil, and I have to give you my honest take on that. While Rare Beauty is marketed as a lip oil, it is not really a lip oil in any sense. To me, it is a true watery lip tint. It is nowhere near as glossy or shiny or cushiony as the Laneige, but the performance is where it really shines. If you love a lip tint with serious long wear time, you are going to love Rare Beauty. It easily lasts through my eating and drinking sessions without disappearing. There is one nuance you should know though. These tend to get one or two shades darker about 30 seconds after you apply them. Personally, I enjoy that deeper tint, so it doesn't bother me. But if you prefer your color to stay exactly as it looks in the bottle, the Laneige might be the better choice for you. Finally, I have to compare this to one of my favorite Korean brands, the Laka Fruity Glam Tints. I adore these. Interestingly, they have the exact same cushiony, plush feel as the Laneige. They have that lip oil body to them that feels incredibly hydrating and nourishing on the lips. Both formulas give you that stunning, glazed finish that looks so juicy. However, the biggest differentiator and why I still lean towards Laka is the performance. Laka lip tints actually last. They provide that long wear formula that stays vibrant throughout the day, whereas the Laneige fades almost as soon as you have a meal. If you want that plush, high gloss look, but you don't want to be reapplying after a few hours, I highly recommend you check out the Laka range. They are truly elite in the world of Asian lip tints. Next, I wanted to quickly share a new mascara discovery from YSL, their Lash Latex Lengthening Mascara. In all honesty, I had no intentions of purchasing this. I am incredibly content with my Dior Overcall or the YSL Lash Clash mascara. However, I received this as a gift with purchase from Sephora, and I'm so glad I had the opportunity to test it. Looking at this one, I immediately knew the kind of effect it would have. It is this slim, tapered shape with hundreds of micro bristles, so it essentially acts like a fine toothed comb for your lashes. It is excellent at separating each individual hair and coating them from the root to the very tip. As a result, even my tiniest lashes look so much more pronounced. It gives you this clean definition that makes it look like you have significantly more lashes than you actually do. I wouldn't call this a volumizing mascara in the traditional sense. It is far more about the length and a sculpted, fanned out look. It is also marketed as a water resistant formula, which is a lifesaver if your eyes tend to water like mine. I haven't noticed any crumbling or flaking even after a long day. Honestly, it reminds me so much of my Ilia Limitless Lengthening Mascara, which I have loved for years. If you are a fan of that fanned out, separated, lash lift kind of effect, you are going to love this. Lastly, I wanted to share a new fragrance that I have been testing, the FlowerBomb Pretty Peony. There are like a gazillion flankers for the original FlowerBomb out there. I used to wear the original back in the day, so I have such a profound memory of that era in my life. I still like it, but it's just not a scent profile I gravitate towards anymore. However, I do love a peony note in my perfumes, so naturally, I was expecting a lot of peony to come through in this. I got this cute 7 ml sample from Sephora, and as much as I love to collect these cute miniature bottles, I honestly don't use a dabber. It's just not practical for me. So I decanted the whole thing into a spray bottle. Let's talk about the scent itself. As soon as I spray it, it hits me with this very sharp, almost artificial scent. It is sweet, but in a very synthetic way. When I looked at the notes, I was so surprised to find out that the top note is supposed to be a strawberry. To me, this is the most artificial strawberry I have ever smelled. It is quite plasticky and a little screechy. After about 10 minutes, though, it settles into a much nicer, light floral scent. I can definitely smell roses in the dry down. It is a fresh rose, not a candied one. But I really don't get much of a peony scent. Even if it's there, it is completely dominated by the rose. Since I love rose in my perfumes, I actually really like the dry down. It is a lighter, more airier version of the original flower bomb, and I can still smell it on me after 6 to 7 hours. That being said, it is not really a perfume I would want to buy a full size of. I will enjoy the 7 ml sample, but I think I will leave it at that. Now, if you are someone who really enjoys a peony note, you're probably looking for that light, aquatic peony that smells regal and elevated. For that, I would highly recommend you get your nose on the Lust in Paradise by Ex Nihilo. I have been testing a decant of this and it is beautiful. Honestly, immediately full bottle worthy for me. Alright, friends, that wraps up today's video. I hope you found it helpful. Let me know if any of these products are currently on your wish list or if you have already tried them. I would love to hear how they performed for you. As always, stay happy and healthy wherever you are in the world, and I will catch you in my next one. Bye for now.